Hi guys, so today I'm going to discuss theatrical romantic versus soft dramatic versus soft natural, and I received this question, so I'm going to answer it, but I think that after I discuss it, it's still not going to help, and it's not going to help because I think the misunderstanding is coming from something else, and it's not really coming from a misunderstanding of what the types are. So I will discuss what the differences between the types here, but I don't think it's going to help because you've already Googled the differences between the types, and honestly you probably already know what they are, right? So the differences are soft dramatic has a yang skeleton, so it's a very specific type, and I did discuss this in my why you can't find your Kibbe type part 2, which not a lot of people liked. People don't like to hear this, okay? But soft dramatic is a very specific type, and theatrical romantic is a very specific type, and soft natural is a very specific type. Soft dramatic has a yang skeleton with yin flesh. It's very specific. It's not a mix. The skeleton is yang, the flesh is yin. Soft natural has, again, the skeleton is soft yang and the flesh is yin. And theatrical romantic is the skeleton is yin and the flesh is also yin, but it has just a few exceptions. So, maybe just 2 or 3 answers on, if you're taking the quiz, 2 or 3 answers on the quiz, 2 or 3 features for theatrical romantic that give it a bit of sharpness, but it is not a predominantly yang type. So the soft dramatic, I've already talked about this in part 2 of my why you can't find your Kibbe type series, I guess, or whatever. But soft dramatic has that yang skeleton. So what happens when you have a yang skeleton? If you look at Sophia Loren, and maybe I'll put a picture of her here, what happens to the face when you have yang bones and yin flesh? So what happens is you have very, very sharp, very prominent facial features. So you have a sharp nose, you have really high cheekbones, also a really defined jaw, okay, and a really, did I say prominent nose? You have a prominent nose as well, right? So that is the skeletal basis, the yang skeleton of the soft dramatic. And then on that, you put yin flesh. Now, yin flesh is soft, but on a yang skeleton, it's going to look very, very voluptuous, like even more voluptuous, even more exaggerated, okay? So that is sort of the signature look in general if you're looking to recognize a soft dramatic. Let's talk about the face. Now, on top of that yang skeleton of the face, you add yin flesh, so you have very full lips and very round eyes, okay? Very prominent eyes, prominent lips. So what happens? You have all of your facial features are now prominent. So everything about the face is prominent. You have prominent eyes, prominent jaw, prominent whatever. All of your skeletal bones are prominent. All of your flesh is prominent. So it looks very prominent, okay? All right, so that's very specific, and at the same time, the same thing is happening to the body, okay? So you have a very, very womanly figure, and and Ali Art does a great job of describing the soft dramatic type in her celebrity types video, and that is the soft dramatic type. There's a lot of information about the soft dramatic versus theatrical romantic type, and theatrical romantic is going to look a little bit more dainty. It's going to look a little bit more dainty and a little bit, that's basically the best way to describe it, right? Like theatrical romantic is more dainty, especially because even that sharpness in a way gives the theatrical romantic a bit more daintiness. Just a little bit, maybe a little bit slanted eyes, or maybe a little bit of sharpness in the shoulders, but everything else is soft, or maybe long arms and legs, but everything else is like very, type E and D answers, and that is going to give the theatrical romantic a bit of dainty sharpness almost. Okay, so I've described the differences. Now, what do I think the problem actually is? And this is what I really want to focus on here. It's how did you go from thinking that you are theatrical romantic, a completely yin type basically, to soft dramatic, which is a predominantly yang type? How did this happen, okay? So it happens, I think, this is what happens, right? People get confused by the quiz. They think the quiz is confusing. So they stop using the quiz because it didn't help them. And then they look up the different descriptions of the body types, okay? So at this point, some people might have a lot of success, and they have a lot of success because they fall into one of the stereotypes of what each body type looks like, and basically they're lucky. Like, they luck out, they look like one of the body types, and their problems are all resolved, and they use the descriptions and everything is fine, right? And then there are other people who they use the descriptions, but they don't exactly fit into the descriptions, even though they don't fit into the classic descriptions of basically any of the types. And if you're confused about this, I would really hope that you watch my video why you're confused about your Kibbe type part 1. So that discusses all about the stereotypes that we have and things like that. So, okay. So now you went from thinking that you are a totally yin type, theatrical romantic, to a totally basically yang type, soft dramatic. How did this happen? So let me tell you a little bit about my own Kibbe journey, I guess, and sort of that I had the same confusion. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this, like, I saw this question and I was like, I woke up early and I just was gonna scroll through and like look at my phone, go back to sleep. I couldn't go back to sleep because this is so important to me. Okay, so anyway, I just like got dressed and I was like, I have to make this video. Okay, so how did you go, okay, from having all yin answers with just a couple of exceptions to mostly yang answers? That is like some deep confusion there. And I know because I've been there. Not because I'm saying, oh, like you're personally, you are confused. No, I think that there's really some deep confusion there, okay? So now these people in general also don't like to look at the quiz, right? They're kind of like, oh, it's confusing. Yeah, it could be confusing, but to type yourself and to type other people accurately, you do need to understand what yin shoulders look like versus what yang shoulders look like. What soft yang, let's say soft yang hands versus, answer B hands versus answer E hands. Now those are different, right? And it might seem confusing, but it's just a part of learning the system, right? You can't really get around that if you really want to understand the system. So what's happening if you have confusion between soft dramatic and theatrical romantic? What you did was let's say initially we're considering theatrical romantic, and then you were thinking, maybe my skeleton is kind of more yang than I thought. Like, maybe I'm a little tall. Maybe my arms and legs are actually a little long. So maybe my hands and feet are kind of big. And, and I'm saying this because this is what happened to me, not because I'm like trying to be mean or anything, this is just the honesty of what happened to me, right? So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna kind of shift around the answers to the quiz to see if I actually fit into soft dramatic, because what happens, okay, so what are the descriptions of soft dramatic versus theatrical romantic? They're both sexy, right? They're both sexy, they're both like quite feminine looking, quite voluptuous. So, I can see why there's confusion, right? Because if you're confused about the quiz and you're not using it, and then you just want to type theatrical romantic versus soft dramatic by eye, you might be a bit confused, okay? Because they're both quite sexy, they're both very feminine looking, right? Like, it's kind of, they seem similar because they're both womanly. They're not sort of the stereotype of the gamine where it's like, oh, looks a bit childlike, a bit girly, right? So I can see why there is confusion between soft dramatic and theatrical romantic, but they're completely different. So, okay, so that is basically my answer. I mean, I think the answer really is that there's a lot of confusion about just the answers to the quiz. And people hate the quiz. A lot of people hate the quiz, and they hate the quiz because they don't understand it. But how are you going to type yourself without the quiz unless you're one of the lucky ones who actually falls into the descriptions? You have to understand the quiz. And that's just kind of, yeah. So I don't know if this answered your question. Actually, like, okay, let me talk about then soft natural. It's the same idea. Soft natural is a soft yang skeleton, with yin flesh, and soft dramatic is a yang skeleton with yin flesh. So if you don't understand, you know, if you don't understand the natural bones, the natural skeleton versus the dramatic skeleton, then you're going to have some problems differentiating between soft natural and soft dramatic, okay? So that's another thing, you know. I would suggest, again, Ali Art's videos are really good on talking, you know, when she talks about the blunt edges of the soft natural, or sorry, of the natural versus the sharpness of the dramatic, right? So that's another thing. Yeah. I don't know, you guys. I don't know if this was helpful at all. I think it was more like a rant than actually constructive. But I guess my overall point is, if you're confused about soft dramatic versus theatrical romantic, I would definitely go back to really understanding what the body parts separately look like in their yin state and in their yang state. So that is my suggestion to you if you're confused about theatrical romantic versus soft dramatic. Because to be able to take a set of answers such as theatrical romantic, where they're all predominantly yin, and to have enough doubt to turn those set of answers into a yang type, suggests that there is some confusion about what the questions are and what each body type looks like in its yang versus its yin state. So that was my long way of saying all of this. And something else that's really not online enough is how specific it is. Soft natural and soft dramatic are pretty specific. They both have, soft dramatic has a dramatic skeleton specifically. It does not have dramatic flesh. Soft dramatic has a dramatic skeleton, and it has yin flesh. And the same for soft natural. Soft natural has a natural skeleton and yin flesh. So that's the idea. And theatrical romantic is yin skeleton, yin flesh. So that's really the answer. And if you're confused about if your skeleton is actually yang, let's say if you're confused about if you're between theatrical romantic and soft dramatic, I will say that it could be that you are a gamine. And people are really, I don't think people like this, but I only say this because that's what happened to me. And I was actually considering theatrical romantic versus soft dramatic. And if you're able to, you know, we're kind of, as humans, we want to see trends. We're like, I guess it's mostly a yang skeleton if I ignore this one thing. And then we're like, I guess it's a yin skeleton if I ignore this one thing or these two things, you know? And the truth is that you can't ignore anything, okay, unless it's an answer C. So that's like, it doesn't contribute to your yin yang balance because it's just in the middle. But if you know that it's not an answer C, you can't overlook those answers. So anyway, yeah, so if you can look if you can look the other way on some features and say theatrical romantic, and then if you can look the other way on some other features and say soft dramatic, chances are you're probably more mixed than you think. You're probably a gamine. So again, please watch my Why You Can't Find Your Kibbe Type Part 1 about the stereotypes of gamine. I mean, Brigitte Bardot is a soft gamine, so please consider that. Okay, this video is getting long. I hope this helped at least a little bit, or at least made you think like, maybe there's more to this than I was initially thinking. If this video did that, then, and you know, inspires you to sort of learn more and really look more deeply into Kibbe typing, then I feel like my job would have been done. If you have more questions or more video requests, please let me know. And also, if you want me to tell you what I think your Kibbe type is, you can email me. My email is down below. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.